They had their first dance on a tiny wooden floor. No spotlight, no big band, just a scratchy Bluetooth speaker playing their favorite love song. And two hearts that couldn't believe they had found each other. She laughed the whole time. He stepped on her toes, and the music wrapped around them like a promise. You'll never be alone. But life had other plans. Just 1 year later, she couldn't hear the song anymore. Not a single note, not the laughter in his voice, not the soft way he said, I love you. The silence came slowly until it swallowed everything, but he remembered the sound, and he remembered her face when she heard it. So when she whispered, I miss music, he didn't tell her to accept it. He didn't ask her to move on. He built something instead. Because sometimes the people who love us most aren't trying to fix us, they're trying to find us. And this time, he found her in the one place silence couldn't touch, the rhythm of their wedding song. Isla Morgan wasn't born deaf. In fact, for most of her life, she lived in sound. She sang in the car, cried during movie scores, once even tried to learn the cello just to feel the music vibrate through her ribs. She loved sound, but she loved him more. Jay, the quiet, kind-eyed sound engineer who spoke gently and listened hard. They met at a mutual friend's birthday party while arguing over whether the playlist was offbeat or just badly mixed. She told him he looked like someone who loved sad songs. He told her she danced like she didn't care who was watching. They were opposites, but the kind that clicked, like melody and harmony, like static and signal. When Jay proposed, it wasn't over candlelight or fireworks. It was in their kitchen, while Unchained Melody played low in the background. The same song they danced to at their wedding, barefoot, laughing, offbeat, perfectly them. But 6 months later, Isla started missing words. First at restaurants, then at work, then in their home. She'd ask Jay to repeat himself more often. He'd smile, repeat it again, slower. Neither of them said the word hearing loss for months, but they both felt it, like a storm rolling in, slow but steady. Doctors called it an autoimmune condition, rare, progressive, unpredictable. Isla's hearing declined in strange, uneven waves. Some mornings, she could catch fragments of conversation. Other days, everything sounded like it was underwater. She tried hearing aids. They amplified the noise, but not the meaning. She could hear cars screeching and dishes clattering, but not Jay saying good morning. Eventually, she relied on lip reading. Her world got smaller. Conversations became calculations. Laughter at dinner tables turned into guesses, and music, the thing she once loved with her whole being, faded into memory. She told herself it was okay, that she still had Jay, still had her body, still had her laugh. But inside, there was a quiet grief she didn't have words for. And Jay saw it in her eyes, the way she smiled a little too quickly, nodded a little too often, and stared at the old speaker on the shelf like it was a ghost. He knew she missed music, but more than that, he knew she missed feeling understood. It happened late one night, no big moment, no dramatic breakdown, just a soft question in the dark. Isla was curled beside Jay on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder, the glow of the muted TV flickering across the room. They weren't watching. They were just being together. She tapped her fingers gently against his chest, a slow, uneven rhythm, like she was chasing a memory she couldn't quite reach. And then she whispered, I miss how music used to feel. She didn't say hear, she said feel, and Jay froze, because that one word, feel, it wasn't about volume, it wasn't about ears, it was about presence. emotion, connection. Jay had spent years mastering sound, measuring it, tuning it, producing it, but he'd never stopped to ask, what does music feel like when you can't hear it at all? And in that question was a seed, an idea that struck him like lightning, not as an engineer, but as her partner. He sat up straighter, held her hand tighter, and said just one thing: let me try something. That was the night he stopped mourning what was lost and started building something new. Jay couldn't sleep that night. The moment Isla said, "I miss how music used to feel," it kept replaying in his mind like a chorus that wouldn't fade. He sat at his workbench in the garage, staring at the leftover parts of abandoned projects: old speakers, worn out cables, a cracked subwoofer from a college experiment. But this wasn't going to be a product. It wasn't for a market. It wasn't for anyone but her. So he didn't start with specs. He started with her skin. Where did she feel things most? The inside of her wrists, her upper back, the base of her neck, the tips of her fingers. That's where he'd speak to her. He tore apart his old sound equipment, extracted the tactile transducers, devices that turn sound into vibration. But they were too bulky, too hot, not good enough. So he redesigned them, made them smaller, softer. He 3D printed a wearable shell, light as fabric, soft as silicone. A band that wrapped around her shoulders like a gentle brace. Flexible bands around her wrists and spine, every inch of it embedded with vibration points mapped to musical frequencies. The low notes would rumble in her spine, the melody would flutter against her arms. And rhythm, that lived in her fingertips. He coded late into the night, tested it against old songs, studied how waves traveled through skin instead of air. Some days it worked, some days it failed, but every day it got closer. And when it was finally ready, not perfect, but ready, he called her in. He wrapped the wearable around her gently, told her to close her eyes, and pressed play. Unchained melody, the same song they danced to on their wedding night. Only now, she didn't hear it, she felt it. A slow gasp left her lips. Her head tilted, her hands rose. She moved like someone remembering how to breathe. And Jay, he didn't say a word. He just watched the music return to her, one vibration at a time. The first time was magic, but magic doesn't always last. By the third day, the wearable overheated. Isla flinched as it buzzed too hard along her spine. She smiled through it, said it was fine, but Jay knew it wasn't. The second version left her skin red. The wiring wasn't insulated enough. The third, it shorted out completely when she wore it during a light rain. They were walking home from the grocery store. She was holding his hand when it stopped working. Again, right in the middle of her favorite song. She stood still, closed her eyes, and whispered, "It's okay." But her lip trembled, and that night they didn't talk much. Jay sat in the garage with his head in his hands, not as an engineer, as a man who loved someone deeply and couldn't quite reach her. And Isla, she began to wonder if she had asked too much. She never wanted him to fix her. She just wanted to feel close again. One night, she sat beside him in silence, took his hand, and asked, "What if I never hear music again? Can you still love me without trying to bring it back?" He didn't answer right away, because it wasn't a question with a simple answer. It wasn't about music, it was about effort, exhaustion, and whether love sometimes tries too hard to save when it should simply stay. So Jay stopped building for weeks. He put the tools away, closed the laptop, stopped sketching. Instead, they just sat. They took walks, cooked together, danced in silence, held each other without trying to improve the moment. And in that quiet, something beautiful returned. Not the music, not the vibration, but trust, presence, the feeling of being enough. When Jay did return to the project, he wasn't building a solution. He was building a bridge, a way to share what he felt, without needing her to be anything but herself. That change, that shift in why he built, made all the difference. The final version of the wearable was different. It was simpler, smaller. It didn't try to mimic music exactly. It translated it into pulses, into waves, into textures she could feel in her soul. And when I slid it over her shoulders for the last time and queued up their wedding song, she didn't cry. She smiled and whispered, "I don't just remember this. I feel like I'm living it again." Jay didn't reply. He just took her hand and started to dance. No need for applause, no audience, just two people finding each other again. It was never meant to go beyond their living room. Jay hadn't built it to be shared. He hadn't dreamed of headlines or hashtags. But when love is real, it resonates, even without sound. Isla posted a short clip, just 30 seconds. Her eyes closed, a small smile on her lips. Her fingertips brushing the air as the music pulsed through her skin. No one watching could hear the song, but everyone felt something. The video went viral. Overnight, messages poured in. "Where can I get one for my daughter? I haven't danced in 10 years. Could this work for me? This is the first time I believe music could be mine again." Jay's inbox overflowed. Disability tech forums reached out, then engineers, then educators. A nonprofit in the Netherlands offered to help produce a limited run. A school for the deaf in Brazil asked if they could test it with their music class. A music therapist in Canada started using the design for trauma patients who couldn't listen but could still feel. Jay open sourced the schematics, refused to patent it, because this wasn't a product, it was a promise. That music isn't owned by the hearing. That emotion doesn't belong to sound. That inclusion isn't about fixing, it's about finding new ways to connect. And Isla, she started speaking at events she once sat quietly through, telling her story not as a victim, not as an inspiration, but as a woman who loved music so much. She found her way back to it through someone who loved her more. For years, Isla thought her voice was slipping away, not just the sound of it, but the power of being understood. She stopped singing, stopped humming, stopped speaking her favorite lyrics aloud. But something changed the moment she felt that song ripple through her skin. She remembered that music had never been about perfection. It was about belonging, expression, emotion, without needing permission. And now, even if the world couldn't hear her sing, she could still feel the music, and that was enough, more than enough. Isla began writing again, lyrics, poems, quiet meditations. She performed one once, on stage, wearing the wearable Jay built. No microphone, no sound, just rhythm. The audience didn't clap. They stood, because even in silence, everyone could hear what she had to say. They never set out to change the world. They just wanted to dance again. Not on a big stage, not for an audience, just in their living room, on a hardwood floor, scratched with memory, no spotlight, no applause, only a candle flickering in the corner, and a song neither of them could technically hear. But both of them could feel. Jay didn't build a device to prove anything. He wasn't chasing invention. He was chasing intimacy, the quiet kind, the kind that says, I see you, even in the silence. And Isla, she didn't need to be cured. She didn't need to be fixed. She just needed one person who believed that connection could take a different shape, that love could hum below the surface of sound and still be symphonic. Now, when people ask her what it was like to feel that song again, she just smiles and says, it was like remembering a part of myself I thought was gone and realizing it never really left. It was just waiting for a new way to speak. This wasn't just about engineering. It wasn't about sound or silence or what's lost and what's found. It was about the spaces between us, the ones that seem impossible to cross until someone builds a bridge. Sometimes love isn't loud. It doesn't shout or sing. It hums, quietly, persistently, patiently, and when it meets resistance, it doesn't give up. It changes form, from words into vibration, from sound into sensation, from trying to fix into choosing to stay. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, misunderstood, know this: your story doesn't end in silence. It just needs someone willing to listen in a new way. Or maybe someone who will dance with you, even when there's no music at all. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who's learning to love in silence, with someone who's trying to be heard, with someone who needs to know that connection has no single language. Drop a comment below. What's the one song you'd want to feel again? Or who's the one person you'd build a bridge back to? And if you believe in stories that speak across barriers, hit subscribe, because here at Able in Every Way, we don't just tell stories about disability, we tell stories about possibility, about the strength to reimagine what's possible, even when the world goes quiet.